Broadcasting live to Bills Mafia Worldwide with Greg Thompson and Aaron Quinn.
Welcome to the NFL.
Doesn't matter what's happened before today. Today's a brand new day. It's a brand new season.
Your number one podcast for objective Buffalo Bills coverage. No matter where you are, we got you covered.
Good evening and welcome to the Cover One Buffalo podcast. You were joining your host, Greg Thompson, along with my partner in crime in a very festive mood, Aaron Quinn. How we doing?
It's the most wonderful time of the year, my friend. We are now, officially 10 days till Christmas now?
Days.
So it's crunch time. If you haven't gotten on your Christmas movies, my friend, our friend of the show, Pat Moran, has been crushing through Christmas movies. This guy hasn't watched any modern Christmas movies in the last 10, 15 years. So
it was an odd statement when I saw it. It was an odd statement.
He's going through them all. I've been there when I first was a stay-at-home dad. I just made a list of every Christmas movie that was possible, and I just watched every single one. So I could get what he's going through, and it's fun. If you haven't crushed them, now's the time to get on it. But we're not here. This is not a Christmas movie podcast, although we could turn it into one.
I would say you could probably do one.
Yeah, you could do one, man. We could.
Oh, yeah.
We could talk about 8-bit Christmas all night.
Yeah. I won't even try to get you started. But today I actually went out to our sponsors, Uncle Jumbo's, got myself some of the Niagara Frontier bourbon whiskey, did a tasting with the guys. It was awesome. They're mad scientists setup of everything. And tonight's show is brought to you by Uncle Jumbo's. And that's bringing you our special guest here. We know when it's time to talk about Carolina Panthers week, none other than our famous alumnus, Antwan Staley. Welcome back to Cover One. Antwan, how we doing?
It's good. Glad to be with y'all guys again.
Yeah, man, it's been a minute.
So now, I mean, you've been all over the place. We see you covering college. You're out there with Oregon, the Athlon, with NFL. How's everything going? You're a busy man.
Really crazy right now. Crazy time of the year. We're doing a whole bunch of stuff at one time, but no, that's what I enjoy doing. So yeah, I can't complain.
Beautiful. So, obviously this season has been odd for the Panthers. You have probably reasonably low expectations going in, reasonable expectations going in. Then you get the hot 3-0 start. You get all the comments about, hey, man, they really, fleeced the Jets on this deal for Sam Darnold. Things are looking good. They got a really great value. Then all of a sudden things start to go a little bit sideways, start to hit some of the injuries. How is it with this team, and whether it's the evaluation of the young talent, the expectations for the season? Where are you 14 weeks in?
Well, I mean, at the beginning of the year, I thought this team might win 8 or 9 games potentially and be just kind of on the cusp of making the playoffs. And, early season, you kind of saw some of that come to fruition with the 3-0 start. People thought Sam Darnold was just all world, and, the Jets were bums, just letting them go the way that they did and things of that nature. And then everything just kind of came crashing down.
Just to be clear, the Jets may still be bums. That's fine.
Yeah.
All right, no argument for me there, but everything just kind of came crashing down against the Cowboys, and then the team really just hadn't been the same since. But yeah, I always maintain, people were saying, "Oh, this team's going to make the playoffs," and they end up going out and get Stephon Gilmore from the Patriots, and thought, "Oh yeah, this team must feel like they're really close." And yeah, you make a deal like that, you really feel like it. And obviously, the C.J. Henderson also trade to acquiring him, but it's just, one thing after another, would be McCaffrey getting hurt once again, and kind of the rotation at quarterback. You start out with Darnold, he gets hurt, and then now you bring Cam Newton in, and he's not necessarily playing very well, although the fans love him to death still. That's kind of a really awkward conversation to have with some Panthers fans, because they live in a bit nostalgia world where they feel like Cam Newton is what he once was, but he's not. And then Matt Rule wants to bring in PJ Walker and his 2 quarterback system. So it is a very weird situation in Carolina, to say the least, too, as well. And not for nothing, also, you have some injuries with DJ Moore right now with the hamstring and offensive line and things of that nature too. So yeah, it's team's still technically in the playoff race, but they're probably gonna have to win out just to have any kind of chance to get into the postseason.
Now, sort of looking at this big picture, and you talked about Matt Rule. Now, as a Bills fan, we went through tons of coaches and trying to establish a coaching, tree and get coaches in here. And it really wasn't until Sean McDermott got here and broke that playoff drought, got into the playoffs consistently, where the Bills were able to really stick with it. And in those years, it was really like a 3-year window where if a coach didn't start to have some success, the fan base got antsy. People started saying, "Oh man, maybe this isn't the guy." Is any of that feeling sort of happening in Carolina? I know they got that good defense building up. It doesn't seem like the offense is growing along with the defense. Are people starting to get antsy and wondering if Matt Rule is the guy here going forward? As now if he doesn't make the playoffs here, you're going to be entering year 3 with no playoffs with this Panthers team.
Yeah, this is his second year technically
Right.
on the job. So, and people already want him fired before the end of the second year. The problem with that is David Tepper, the owner, signed him to a 7-year contract. So I don't know if it's a typical 5-year deal, then yeah, you might say it might be a reason why you might decide to part ways. But usually coaches get 3 years kind of in this day and age. But yeah, with 7-year deal, that kind of makes it very, very difficult to kind of get rid of, unless it would be like a Urban Meyer type situation there in Jacksonville, which is a whole completely different crap show.
Hey, literally every day,
yeah,
some new story comes up for him.
It's like he's trying to get fired.
Yes, that's a whole different conversation. But yeah, I think Matt Rule is trying. It's just when you're making that transition from college to the NFL, it's never going to be easy, especially coming from a place with Baylor where you're not getting top recruits. You're going to have to fight with Oklahoma, and I know Texas has been down, but still, those are really the power teams in your conference. And now you're making that jump to the NFL. So I think it's crazy that if you didn't believe it was going to be some kind of bit of a transition with him, and they still have to address the quarterback situation,
right?
Like, and anytime you don't have that situation taken care of, and the offensive line is not necessarily where it needs to be, then it's going to be issues. No matter how good the skill position players are, I like Robbie Anderson, I like DJ Moore, I like Terrence Marshall, I even like Chuba Hubbard. Even though McCaffrey's been hurt too the past couple of years, but until you get that quarterback situation figured out, then none of this is going to work, and you're going to kind of be stuck where you are, which is right in the middle.
Well, talking about those offensive guys, before we get into the full matchup, one more coaching question. What in the world happened with Joe Brady? How in the world did you go from, hey, he was the top hire of any potential OC, and discussions of, is he going to skip right over and go directly to NFL head coach, and then getting head coaching interviews, to then weird verbiage of, he's been relieved of his duties. And I heard rumors of, was he listening to too many outside calls from other opportunities or other coaches? Was it butting heads with Matt Rule? Was it simply results based and the system not working? But I can't remember
taking the blame
that big of a peak and valley of a drop for a coach in a long time. I mean, like literally
maybe
year.
Urban Meyer.
Less than a year.
Somebody like that, like in less than a calendar year, from the top buzz name to fired, was crazy. What happened?
Yeah, just remember he got interviewed for Houston and was one of the finalists for that job.
Yeah.
So just imagine, had they decided to go in a different direction, he'd be the coach at the Texans right now. And a lot of people thought he was just a buzz name, and all of a sudden, he's out of work and probably going to go back to the college ranks. It seems like, for me. But yeah, I think it's a number of different things. Result based, obviously, the offense hadn't been what it was. I think partly it's the fact that philosophies with him and Matt Rule, which I thought it was kind of an odd pairing too, just simply because they didn't necessarily have a prior relationship with one another. And
being usually, an offensive coach and coming in and immediately giving up the whole thing was interesting.
Exactly. And anytime you come into a new situation and you're a college coach, you want to have a relationship with somebody you're working with. And those guys really didn't have one. I mean, he kind of just picked off Joe Brady, and because he was the hot guy at the time with the coordinator and everything he did with LSU. But yeah, I think that it was just, I thought it was an odd pairing just to begin with.
Well, from the outside, obviously you have ultra rich owner, hey, I can afford to go get the Buzz name.
Right.
No, I know it's not a perfect fit, but look, we can get
An
this
aggressive
guy.
owner.
Yeah, we can get this guy. Why don't we go get him? And all of a sudden, yeah, you guys will figure it out. Just figure it out. It seemed like that kind of thing from afar.
Yeah, and Phil Snow was his guy, like from Baylor and everywhere he's going. Phil Snow was his guy. So I thought it was interesting for him just to go beyond that and not get somebody that's comfortable with the philosophy and everything that he's run. And that definitely came, like I say, that's definitely exactly what happened. And now they're going to be looking for an offensive coordinator in the offseason. But it was just a combination of a lot of the things. I don't think everything was Joe Brady's fault. I think some of that is just personnel as well. And it kind of goes back to what I said with the quarterback position too, as well, when that's not working out as well as they had planned, especially how they envisioned Sam Darnold to be this year. And that's kind of the root of all of the problems offensively.
Well, let's stick with the offense here for a minute. And I want to joke. The Panthers are like the anti-Patriots. Like, you have so many flashy names that sound good, that people know from their fantasy football team, and they know that, oh, well, DJ Moore's good. And I remember Robbie Anderson, and he was getting all those deep bombs, and Christian McCaffrey, and oh my gosh, they got Cam Newton back. And it really boils down to only so much of it matters. One, you brought up the quarterback. We'll get to that in a moment. But man, this offensive line is tough. I still respect Taylor Moton. I think that, he's still a talent there. But man, I mean, Cam Irving is rough at guard, let alone, having him protect the blind side at left tackle. And, I think Elfline's okay, but man, these guards are rough in what's going on.
John Miller as well. So yeah,
we know. Yeah, we remember. we remember. In this last game, like, I had to look. I was like, oh, I didn't even realize Brady Christensen and Dennis Daly were getting reps. I didn't even know those guys were there. So going through this, how have they tried to cobble that together? That's where Matt Rule cut his teeth, was in the offensive line. So being able to get through there and have it be this rough, they don't even have a chance.
It's been a bit of carousel of a lot of different people, and you talked about just Dennis Daly, and that hadn't necessarily worked. And they thought Greg Little might be the answer a few years ago. Obviously, he's down in Miami, and it's just hadn't necessarily worked. And Taylor Moton's a really good play tackle, but when your other parts of the offensive line are not necessarily very good, then
we talk all the time. Matter. You can have one weak link. It's okay to have one weak link. You can disguise that. You can shift away from that. You can shade protections. But if you get more than one weak link, you're in trouble. Most people would say that the Panthers, even being polite, have 3 weak links. That's really hard to scheme around.
Yeah, you ever see the cartoon where you have like a leaky faucet, and then you try to push the hole, push a hole, and there's another one, and then it starts squirting somewhere else. That's kind of what reminds me of the Panthers' offensive line too, because it's just you try to cover one spot, and then there's another one, and there's another, and then that's really the root of their issues too. Is they can't protect the quarterback, and then you got a guy like Cam Newton who's. Look, he's not the player that he once was. I think we all understand that. Even his loyalists understand that too, but. He's not like 2011 Cam Newton's that's going to just run shot over people and run the ball that he used to.
Or have defenders bounce off him in the pocket and he just stands there. Yeah,
exactly. You're going to have to protect him a lot more than what he did early on in his career. And you don't have that offensive line. He's going to take unnecessary shots. And I think you've seen that during his return there in Carolina.
Yeah, and I mean, so let's talk a little bit about this rotation. And it sounds like they're going to continue on. I won't lie, I was a fan of PJ Walker in the XFL and watching him go back and forth. I was excited to see, like, I wonder, now, not that he's not Kyler Murray and things like that, but seeing the Russell Wilsons and the Kyler Murrays and the non-stereotypical quarterback builds have a chance and to do things. There was a piece of me that wondered, be like, well, I don't know, maybe he could catch lightning in the bottle and be something. I think it's shown the processing speed, the speed of the defenders, and the fact that he could evade so much pressure in the other times we've seen. And now all of a sudden he's got other Brian Burnses on the other side of the defense that, like, hey, these guys, defensive ends in the NFL that start can catch you before you turn the corner. One is what I'm hearing correct. They're going to continue with this rotation, and they started the return window for Sam Darnold. I don't know what to expect here. I'm guessing we're going to see another 60-40, 70-30 of Cam and a little bit of PJ Walker? Is that what we should expect?
Yes, I mean Cam was going to start, and then just depending on how the game goes and sequences and different plays, you'll see PJ Walker too as well. And I'm one of those people that says when you're playing two quarterbacks, you really don't have one. Even though I would like to see a little bit more PJ Walker, just simply because I think they need to find out what he is because they need to.
Cam's not the answer to anything long term.
Yeah, exactly. I wouldn't necessarily a person that wanted Cam to come back in the first place, although, like I say, a lot of people wanted that in Carolina. But I want to see what PJ Walker is so you can address. You need to know if 1A, you can keep him next year and potentially build upon him and also draft somebody as well. Although I think Sam Darnold with his huge number next year is no way that you can't bring him back. Nobody's going to trade for that contract at this point. So I think you're kind of stuck with that for a year. So that might be their thinking, just to keep Darnold and also draft somebody. But yeah, I think the system clearly has not worked. Cam Newton, definitely a lot of people thought he would be the answer to the Panthers' issues. That's not necessarily the case too as well. He's turning the ball over. I won't say almost as much as Sam Darnold, but pretty close. Especially if you watch the game last week, end up throwing an interception, also losing a couple fumbles. So yeah, it's not, like I say, I'm not blaming everything on the quarterback position. Obviously, we talked about the offensive line, but when you're making just boneheaded decisions, whether it be fumbling the ball or also interceptions, then you're not going to beat anybody, whether it be the Houston Texans or the Buffalo Bills or Kansas City Chiefs. And I think that also has a big part to do why the Panthers are in the position that they are at 5-8.
Well, and in this last piece for the offense, if they are able to get a little bit of protection, if they are able to get a little stability at the quarterback play, I think the rest of it has some intrigue. You rattled off the names earlier. I haven't heard much about the hamstring for DJ Moore, so assuming he plays,
he was limited today. Yeah, okay. He was limited today, so I would imagine he'll probably play. Yeah.
Limited is pretty encouraging if they're already going through some motions early on in the year. I was a huge fan of Tommy Tremble in the draft. Yeah. Pairing him with Ian Thomas, I think you have some encouragement there. And then, I don't know that Chuba Hubbard and Amir Abdullah are the lead backs that you want, but they're actually really nice as a 2 and a 3.
Yes.
If you have a McCaffrey as a 1. So again, assuming they get protection, assuming that they get solid quarterback play, talk a little bit about these weapons here. I think that's at least a piece that is relatively figured out here. I don't think a lot of Bills fans know about Brandon Zylstra in the slot or things like that. How are they using the combination there with the young tight ends and those outside receivers?
Well, I think as far as the top guys, you talked about DJ and Robbie, I think there a lot of teams would love to have receivers like that on the top end. It's just the fact that they don't have a quarterback and always get them the ball consistently. And then I talked about Terrence Marshall. You talked about also Tommy Tremble, who they've used in different situations, whether it be kind of in packages early on in the season and also just kind of blocking and receiving as well. But I don't think they've used him as much as I think they could. But again,
for Bills fans, he's almost like a souped up version of what we use Reggie Gilliam for. They list him as a fullback. He's also a tight end. He also plays special teams, is able to move around like an H-back. Tremble is almost like a souped up version of that. They can do a lot of those different roles.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of what they like to do with all of those guys. But when, again, you're having issues getting the ball to receivers, to no matter who they are, then it's not really going to matter. You're not going to, no matter who the skill position players look like. And I think you've seen that throughout the course of the year with the Panthers. And that's why I think they haven't been able to take advantage of some of the matchups that they've had against other opponents defensively.
Now let's switch it over to the defensive side of the ball. This will be probably a much better conversation to talk about it for Panthers fans. I like this defense a lot. We'll talk about sort of like the overall before we get into the position groups. This is the unit. If the Panthers are going to come out and win this game, it's going to be led by this defense. But we've had this for years in Buffalo, where you had one side of the ball just really good and you couldn't get much help from the other side of the ball. Sort of how frustrating has that been for Panthers fans to see such a good defense not go to waste yet? Because like you said, you're still in the playoff hunt, but feeling like maybe that good unit is going to waste because it's hard to stack really good top 10 defensive years in a row. Is there some kind of anxiety that that's going to waste right now? Or with all the youth and players that you have, do people feel like this is going to be a good unit going forward for the next few years?
It's frustrating because you got a guy like Hassan Reddick who's on a 1-year deal and is balling out.
Yeah.
And then the anxiety too, because you don't know if you're going to be able to resign somebody like that, because he's actually outplaying expectations. I think a lot of people thought he would have in Carolina. He might be out. He might get a big contract.
Edge dudes
else.
are premiums too, right?
Exactly. And then you already have one, and Brian Burns too.
Right.
So you also think about him coming up in the next few years. So how much money do you want to commit to two guys out there in those premium positions? You typically would like to draft one and then have a veteran one there as well, so you're not spending too much of the cap room there. But it's a decision they're going to have to definitely make, because Hassan Reddick has definitely made Brian Burns' job a lot more easier on the defensive end. And also Shaq Thompson too as well. Shaq Thompson has had a really tremendous year, one of the better years of his career. So I think those three guys really stood out to me, and they have a really good rotation there at the defensive end position too as well. You talk about Fox, who I thought was a really good addition there, coming over from the Rams. He's been a good guy, plug-in guy.
I liked him a lot in the Rams. He was one of my free agent targets that I had talked about as a good value guy. That was a great pickup. Yeah,
really good against the run, decent, can get pressure on the quarterback too as well. So, and the secondary, I think Dante Jackson has really had a really bounce back year. Well, he was kind of under siege. A lot of people kind of left him for dead, thought, oh, well, they're just going to let him go in free agency. But I thought he's done a really good job.
You can let him go, come right to Buffalo, and play with Trey White again.
Yeah, they definitely could use some. Y'all could use somebody like that too as well. So yeah, I definitely think he's going to have a big market when it comes to free agency too. So they got a decision to make with him, and obviously Gilmore has played, well at times too as well. I think considering the situation that he was in and out for a big part of the season, I thought he's been pretty decent. Yeah. So they have a ton. I think people are frustrated because the defense has played well enough to win games. Yeah. It's just a matter of they can't get a lot of points scored, and their defenses keep having to get back out there on the field a lot. And you know what that happens.
2019 Bills, man. The 2019 Bills had a great defense. Could not get the offense to score more than 20 points. You can't win that way in the NFL. Yeah. But let's talk about this defense, because I want to talk about this front seven, because I think this game could either really be, controlled by your front seven against this weak Buffalo Bills offensive line. But at the same time, you look at this team, and while they're a really good defense and statistically they're a good defense, there's some issues in that run game. And I know Bills fans don't want to hear that, because that's not the mode of attack for the Buffalo Bills. What is that issue? Because they're pretty stout up front. They still got those big bodies. They got some good run defenders, and they have good linebackers. What's going on in that run game? Why is that sort of the issue for this defense so far this year?
Well, I think people just choose to run on the outside. The inside, I think, is really good. But if you can bounce it out to the outside and get away from the edge rushers, the Panthers kind of have, outside of Thompson, very average linebacker play. Yeah. So anytime you have that, you have the ability to hit some home runs and get some big yardage too as well. And I think teams have seen that and whether take that approach too. And whether you looked at games against the Patriots, I think the Patriots just kind of ran it down their throat too, or some others. The Falcons have done kind of a little bit of the same thing as well. So yeah, I think that's really the approach a lot of teams have used, instead of just having your quarterback drop back like 30 times a game, especially considering the pass rushers that they have. Yeah, let's attack them running the ball and then see what we can do, and then eventually tire them out. And then maybe later on in the game, we take some big shots and maybe get some plays down the field. And I think that's been a big part of their weaknesses, especially I think the Cowboys really kind of exposed that too after that 3-0 start. And I think teams have started to take that game plan into effect.
Now, I don't usually ask this type of question, but do you think, I think for the Bills fans, they look at Carolina as a whole and think like, hey, this should be an easy game. There doesn't seem to be a ton of excitement about this game. But I look at, the Bills' strength on offense. There's a lot of talk here in Buffalo of, hey, let Josh cook. Let's just spread it out and pass it, which I think is an option to play against this Carolina defense. But I do think it plays into your strength a little bit. Do you think Carolina's hoping that Buffalo says, hey, let's spread it out and see if we can protect Josh with that hurt foot right now and let these pass rushers get at him? Is Carolina saying, hey, yeah, drop back a bunch of times because that's how we're going to create havoc and get turnovers? Is that their path to victory?
Yeah, I think they want to try to get Josh Allen out and probably fumble the ball a few times and take some hits on them, and maybe kind of wear him out that way. They don't want him. One, I don't think they want him running the ball outside the pocket because that would definitely spell issues for them. But if they can keep him inside the pocket and have some chances for Reddick and Burns and some of those guys to get some shots on them, and who knows, turnovers, like if you can get the Panthers with a short field, no matter who you are in the NFL, you can have a chance to win games and get some points on the board. And I think that's the only way. That's the path to the victory for them. That's the only way I think they can win this game. It'll be able to get some turnovers on Allen early on in the game and maybe force him to touch decisions that ill-advised decisions before he really wants to get rid of the football.
Yeah,
well,
so
you look at
that
Cardinals game. That Cardinals game the Panthers had, that was exact recipe that you got some turnovers, got it rolling, and
that's it. Yeah, and we lost to the Jaguars, so anything's possible this year.
All options are on the table.
This year has been weird for games like this, so I would advise people just don't think everything is going to be just a complete layup, because if this year shows anything, that's definitely not the case. You got Jacksonville winning games like that. I think everyone's
had a bad loss.
Everybody had a bad loss at this point of this junction of the year, almost.
Absolutely.
I think.
So one last question on the defensive side, because I think it's very interesting. I'm a big Jeremy Chin fan. First of all, I love his game. Just all over the field. Every time I turn on a game, he's everywhere. Yeah, absolutely everywhere. Great addition for you guys. But there's an interesting sort of 3 safety rotation. Can you give fans an idea of what's going on with bringing in the 3 safeties with Burris, Bouye, and obviously Chin playing all over the field? What to expect?
Well, Chin is more like he can he can line up to stop the run. He can also play back in coverage, and they like him doing a lot of different things too as well. So he can play some linebacker for him. He can play like
he's bigger than a handful of linebackers.
Exactly. He did a lot of that in college too. So they use him in a lot of different ways, and that's the reason Matt Rule and Phil Snow wanted to get him on there and draft him. So
we wanted him too.
I think a lot of teams did. I think had he went to a bigger school, he'd be a surefire first round pick. That's just how it is. But I think they like to use him in a lot of different ways. And then they'll also have Burrs and they'll have Bouye too as well in the game at the same time. Both of those kind of rotating with each other. Burrs is more like your traditional cornerback role, but also can play some safety too as well when they have Chin up in the box trying to stop the run. And obviously Bouye, with his history being a corner, playing at a high level, having him play some coverage against some wide receivers and also slot receivers too as well, just to kind of take some pressure off of Chin too as well. So they love to have Chin just in a variety of different roles, and that also it helps him kind of not stand out among defenders too as well. But good quarterbacks know exactly where he is.
Yeah, you're gonna know where he is every play.
Because he can be anywhere on the football field.
This whole defensive roster was just so many wish list draft items you go through, formerly with Shaq Thompson, but then Chin and Derek Brown. I'd loved AJ Boye when he was coming out, and Burns and Gross Matos, and like so many people. It's like, oh them too. Like it seems like things could come together. And you talked about it here that you can't take anybody lightly, so we'll put you on the spot. What do you expect to see this Sunday? What kind of game do you expect, and what's the score you predict?
I think the defense for the Panthers can keep them in it for a little bit, at least in the first half. But, I think the Bills are just so talented. And obviously things have not gone their way as of recently. Obviously the Tampa game was a really tough loss, especially considering the way they fought back in the second half and in the overtime. But so I like Buffalo, especially playing at home, to get probably about a 10-point victory here. I would say 31, maybe 17, I guess you could say that. I think that'd be a good score. I think the Bills start to get things rolling as it turns to the playoffs. And I think Buffalo, even if, I think obviously the division is still within play, but even if they don't win a division, I think this is a team that nobody's going to want to play in the first round just simply because of the things that they do on both sides of the ball and how physical they are.
No, that's great. We appreciate you. Before we get you out of here, let the fans know where can they find your work? What else you got going on?
You find me at Antwan Staley on Twitter. Find my work at Athlon Sports too as well. Also do some coverage at Oregon Ducks too as well. We got National Sign Day that's starting to take shape too as well. Bowl game.
You guys didn't lose anybody to Jacksonville State, did you?
No, they did not. So that's just Florida State, which I saw a fan burn the jersey after that too. So
People losing their minds, man.
Yeah, alpha recruits. Wow, alpha what 17-year-old kids are doing. Yeah, that just blows my mind.
And I will say, people that are following, I know a lot of people don't always follow our guests because they're covering other teams, but you are so much more than covering any particular team.
Yeah.
You're a great follower.
Talk about
on Twitter.
everybody.
Yeah, I've been following you for
anything
years.
football, anything football.
Yeah, absolutely, and other stuff too. You're a great follow in general.
Yeah.
So follow
sports,
Antwan,
everything. Yeah. If you like sports, music, anything, just hit me up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Beautiful. Appreciate you very much. We'll talk to you soon. Hope for a good, healthy game this Sunday, and a Merry Christmas.
All right, Merry Christmas to y'all. Thank y'all.
Man. Take care.
Thanks, Antoine. All right. So, obviously always fun to have him back on, and used to write for Cover One and been around. Saw him down at the Senior Bowl. Is a really great guy. So excited to have him here. And we talked about it pre-show. It's a weird week. It's not a team that we play often.
After that Jacksonville game, everything's weird, Greg.
Yes, I know. And again, believe me, I ain't gonna have any grand proclamations for me. I'm done in that world. But it is weird. It's hard to get up for this game. It's a home game. The weather looks decent. Some people asked there. I think I saw 30 degrees, so it'd be chilly, but 10 to 15.
A little overcast, nothing crazy.
It's overcast, no precipitation. Should be a nice winter day. Very reasonable.
As good as it's going to get.
Yeah, as good as you can get for late December in Buffalo. It's as good as you're
we've had
find.
Multiple winds since that Monday night game here in Buffalo. We've had multiple nasty windstorms, so we're not getting any of that crazy, wacky weather.
Yeah, should be normal, relatively normal stuff. And the over under I see it as Buffalo minus 10.5. I think it opened up around 9 and has been moving its way up. The over under is at 44.5. So Vegas is predicting honestly pretty close to what Antwan had. They got it like 17-27. That ballpark is what Vegas is calling for. It's an interesting game. Buffalo cannot afford to take anyone lightly. They have to be very focused. They have to be attentive. And it's easy for us to say, hey, just do what you did in the second half against the Buccaneers and everything will be great. Well, they've known that all season. They've known the things you need to do to play well. And they've still had games that have come out and been frustrating and misleading and some of them inexplicable in how they went. So what do you expect as we're going to go into this game coming off of that week? Do you think they can harness that momentum?
Well, I'm sick of hearing that whichever game they lost, pick one, was going to be the game that changes it. We've heard the same things in the press conferences, and I get it. Those guys have to give sort of those types of answers. I'm not putting it on the players all that much, but at some point it's got to come. And we've talked about it here for a month now, of backing themselves into a corner. And I still think there's a tiny bit of wiggle room, but this isn't the one you can drop.
No,
right? This is the one you just have to take care of your business. You have to beat a team that you're better than, and by almost every single stretch, you're better than this team across the board. It's at home. There's no excuses. If you are the playoff team and the playoff caliber team that you're saying, and all the press conferences that this isn't the team we are, and the second half of that game is the team we are, now's the time to prove it, right? Get out and prove it. Get a win, stack a win, because you have even a bigger game. You can't look ahead to New England, but you have to stack a win and start to build this momentum. We talk about, this is the time of year where you need to be playing your best football and taking that momentum into the playoffs. It starts now. And if they are who they have been saying they are, they're going to come out here and establish dominance early in this game and be those front running teams that you say they are, that they're front runners that beat up on teams that are worse than them. And now's the time to prove that.
Yeah. And, I don't think that's changed dramatically. I will say it was reassuring to see the first comeback. We had only seen either boat race wins, pulling away from teams, or some form of ugly, painful, or embarrassing losses, some combination in there. We hadn't seen that coming. And again, they didn't win. So it's all relative. But to come back, to tie it in regulation, to go to overtime, to be there with the defending Super Bowl champs and currently the favorite to win the Super Bowl for this year is different. That was something we hadn't seen yet. So that was at least reassuring to show. We talked about all the things of the reasons why that meant, hey, for the people harping on they quit or were soft or were giving up. Teams that are soft don't do that. They don't turn around and do that. So we saw that's in the repertoire of what's there. I do think that front running style comes into play here this week. Mm-hmm. I do think that this is also a team that, I think there's still a lot of pride. I think they're playing tough, but they're in a rough spot. Things aren't going great. I don't think you're going to have a lot of guys excited to play in the cold. I think,
dude, they were like bundled up last week in Carolina. If you go back and watch that game, everybody's wearing their hoods and stuff. And I was just thinking to myself, like, it was probably like 50 degrees.
Yeah, like 52. Yeah, like, just wait. The wind chill is going to be like 24 when they're here on Sunday. So it's one of those games that if you do get out on them early, I think this can be put away pretty cleanly. And I can't lie, I wouldn't hate a quarter and a half of Mitch Trubisky this week. So as we pivot over for the Uncle Jumbo's player spotlight, again, I want to spotlight some of the guys out there. I had a chance to hang out with Chris and Alex today. Again, anybody who doesn't know, Uncle Jumbo's is a family operation. You're talking about like 3 guys, a dad and some sons, and putting together some awesome stuff to be able to just enjoy together and to have it. I got to taste a bunch of the different stuff. They have a bunch of different things coming out. So they have their Niagara Frontier bourbon whiskey out. They're going to have a rye that's coming out. They're going to have a cask special brand that's coming out. A couple different things that are going to be really nice. So I'm excited about it. I got some news about their tasting room that should be opened right at the beginning of the new year. So a lot of really cool stuff coming out there. I'm really excited, and always someone that we're always going to be very proud to be associated with, our first big sponsor, and has been with us since the beginning. So was very, very cool. And I'm excited. I got to taste some of the bourbon whiskey. It was really, really good. And it'll be taste even better into victory on Sunday.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. So who do you want to spotlight coming into the game this week? It's something where, there's a couple different directions we can go of what we want to see kind of get right.
Yeah, to me, I sort of had this argument with Nate Geary earlier this morning about, I've been sort of on this feed Stephon Diggs #1 wide receiver thing is a little bit overblown, in my opinion. He's getting 9.3 targets per game. That's top 10 in the NFL. He's not far behind your Devontae Adams, which yards per pass, a friend of the show, and people know him, put out a couple weeks ago, hey, the Bills, I wish the Bills would target Stephon Diggs in the same way the Packers target Devontae Adams. Well, I got some news for you. Like, it's pretty close. It's right there. And the tweet Nate was referencing was how many 10+ target games each person had. And Diggs is tied with Devontae Adams at 6. And Diggs had, I think, 9 a year ago. So he could get that in this next month of football. It wouldn't be shocking to me for him to get 3 out of 4 games with 10 targets. So I think he's targeted like a #1 wide receiver. I don't have a problem. Get him a target or 2 more, and it'll put him in the top 5 by far. I'm fine with that. I think probably if you look back at some of those games too, there's some targets missing of, poor offensive line play where a target would have gone to Diggs. It's some stuff where, the margins are slim in the NFL but year to year. But so a long way of getting to my spotlight player of the game is I think Cole Beasley is really a guy that drives this, the engine of this offense. You guys have heard me talk about this before. I'm always saying on Twitter that they need to feed Cole Beasley. I do think Diggs drives the offense, and games where they've had the most success, he gets fed. But I think some of that feeding Diggs also comes when Beasley's getting his and getting it going. And this last month of football, I've never seen this particular offense in the last 2 years look worse than when Cole Beasley's been hurt and not been himself and not playing to the effective level that he was. And you saw him bring his game back to what we've seen from him in the past in that second half of that Tampa game. He was moving chains. He was a big part of busting out those man-to-man coverages. He was the Cole Beasley that we remember. And I think the more we can get him going in this offense and being that guy that extends, on third downs and is an extension of the run game, the better this offense operates as a whole. It gets Diggs fed. It gets Gabe Davis fed. Like, everything's sort of then Josh Moore kind of spreading that ball. And that's where I think Josh Allen's best, is not just locking on to Diggs and feeding Diggs. It's getting Diggs maybe his 8 or 9, getting Beasley 6 or 7, Knox 3 or 4, Gabe Davis a handful. Like, that's where you start to see Josh Allen have these big 300-yard games, the Bills putting up 40 points. Like, that's what I want to see. So for me, it's if Beasley's healthy, we got to get him the 7 to 8 targets a game.
Yeah. Our man OG Brooklyn here. Appreciate you. As great as Josh is, it's going to take a complete effort. Hashtag I watch every show. We appreciate that.
Yeah.
And one of our guys in the Cover One Premium Slack channel, Adam Pencil, put together a pretty good thread that I went back and forth with him on Twitter about some of the stats for Beasley. There's some concern. There's some question, and I told him, I'm like, hey, I'm not saying that I don't think maybe he's lost a half a step, because
Sure.
I think that it's hard to watch and not say that, hey, he's maybe not exactly the same, but that middle stretch there is about 2/3 of the way into the season where he had about a 4-game stretch where he was trying to play through broken ribs. You could tell he was immediately going down after he caught the ball. He was trying to get out of bounds. He was asking out of the game. And I respect the fact that he was gutting through it, but he wasn't the same. This last week against Tampa Bay, one of his greatest skills, and you guys will remember this as soon as I say it, is that he has that ability to instantly accelerate and dart upfield after he catches the ball in the soft spot in the zone. And sometimes it's just a lunge. Sometimes it's just a dive. Sometimes he gets a step or two with it, but he always gets like an extra 3 or 4 yards where he can get the ball and quickly turn upfield
like
and
Wes
accelerate.
Welker.
Yes. Yeah. Welker was phenomenal at it.
Yeah.
And when they're doing that, the defender still kind of tackles him, but they kind of ride along with it. And he stopped doing that in that stretch because he didn't want to take the extra hit. Well, in Tampa Bay, he did it 3 separate times.
Yeah.
And that he got the ball quickly turned and had that acceleration of that explosion upfield. If we get that, he's still a valuable contributor to this team. And I know I commented on a thread for our guy Sneaky Joe on WGR. And he was talking about some of the efficiency numbers for Gabe Davis. And I get it. In a vacuum, it does look really good in that what he produces in the limited amount of targets that he gets is really encouraging. I want to warn people, and I went through and I pulled a couple other ones. He showed the last 100 targets for Gabe Davis versus the last 100 targets for Stephon Diggs. And when you put it in that lens, it's like, oh, well, we should get
him 100 new targets. Yeah,
he should get 100 more targets. Maybe he should be wide receiver 1. And I went and I pulled Robert Tonyan versus Devontae Adams, and I pulled Brashad Perriman versus Chris Godwin, and I showed, hey, anytime you have an elite quarterback on a good team with a lot of gravity being pulled by the talent of the other wide receivers on the team, that other guy can produce really highly efficient numbers. And that doesn't mean
less often.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that those aren't good players and that
Right.
maybe those offenses shouldn't consider getting them a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
But what other people will see is they'll look at that and go, oh, he's better than that other guy. He should be the primary weapon in this offense. If we just give him 50 more targets, he'll do those numbers times 50. And it's just not that simple.
Right.
They are producing because of the quarterback, because of the gravity and attention of the wide receiver 1, because of the scheme in the system. And again, I like Gabe Davis. I want Gabe Davis to get
He's earned more
touches.
Yeah.
He's not some secret wide receiver 1 in waiting. He is good at those contested catches. He's a physical presence. He's pretty good at those Michael Thomas type slant routes where he can guard his body. We saw the post where he caught the touchdown. They went back to him. He can do those things. He's not some secret superstar right now. Maybe he develops further in his career. I just want to be careful that I think some fans think that there's this huge burgeoning explosion ready to happen.
And I don't even know, in my mind, I don't think that he's past Beasley, in my opinion, of where I want to see targets go. I'd like to see him get targets sort of in with the same range that I want to see Dawson Knox.
It's exactly what I was going to say. Yeah, equal to Dawson Knox. If they both get 6, awesome.
Yeah, totally cool. So, I think that's a great point that those numbers don't always continue on. But yeah, Beasley, maybe he has lost a step. Maybe this is his last year in this Bills offense. Those are conversations.
I won't lie. I've shifted from, hey, we need to extend him to now, hey, let's see how the rest of the season goes and then we'll decide.
Yeah. But I do want people, I don't know how many people out there that are talking about Beasley in a negative manner. I think some of it comes from the off the field stuff this year. I think people soured on him with all the stuff in the preseason. So I think even some fans soured on him or looking for excuses anyway. But this type of injury, dude, I don't know if you've ever had rib injuries. I've bruised my ribs. I haven't even broken or cracked a rib, and I bruised my ribs. And I could not imagine playing in the NFL with a broken rib. People
know I was sick here over the last couple of weeks. One night in a coughing fit, I I strained an intercostal muscle, one of the muscles between your ribs. I didn't even bruise a rib. I didn't break a rib, nothing like that. It felt like someone was stabbing me every time I turned. I can't imagine having worse than that and playing in an NFL game where a linebacker might hit you.
Yeah, and maybe there's a conversation that needs to be had that throughout this last month that maybe they should have not had Cole Beasley playing. I don't know. There's not a whole lot you can do for ribs, but maybe him being out there wasn't necessarily a benefit for the Bills. But if he is healthy, which he looked more so in this last game against Tampa Bay than I've seen him over a month of football, if he is healthy, that's my guy to spotlight.
No, I like it. And I love the comment from Josh today in the presser that he said the real shame of not completing the comeback was people should be remembering Gabe Davis's play where he came back and fought for the yards for the 4th down conversion. That should be like one of those historic, memorable plays of, oh, you remember when we came back from 21 on the Buccaneers and Gabe Davis fought for that 4th down? Right. That's one of those things that he said is a shame will get lost in this because we didn't complete the comeback and didn't win. But guys in the chat, sitting there, I certainly want to make sure I caution that I'm not down on Gabe Davis. I just simply, I've heard the level of excitement maybe go a little bit further than what I'm ready for. I like him. I want him to get more touches. I'm honestly not even, I won't say I'm concerned about losing Emmanuel Sanders because I think Gabe Davis can step into that role very
I think there's a good little silver lining here that we get a break to see without having to take Emmanuel Sanders off the field. He's injured. He's going to take a break anyway here for a little bit. And we get to see if can he, step into that role and like you said, will that production transfer as a wide receiver too? We'll see. Yeah. And I'm excited to see that because I do think he's earned more reps. I think not only with his receiving, he's a really good blocker that helps in the run game. It helps in those runs that Josh tries to do. I don't know how much I want Josh running on this foot, but I think he's done everything over the last month to slowly earn those reps.
Yeah, maybe one of these games. I think we're going to get 2 or 3 games without Emmanuel Sanders here. So I think we're going to have a good 3-game run. Yeah. I wouldn't mind maybe we get him back for 1 game before the playoffs.
Sure.
But I bet over those 3 games, one of them might be an 8 or 9 or 10 target Gabe Davis game. I think most of them will be 5, 6, 7 like he normally has been. But maybe one of them he gets a nice show out game, and I'd like to
Patriots. Patriots are going to try to take Diggs away. They'll try to take your thing away.
It's a great idea. That they lean into Diggs. They give him the bracket. They bring the extra safety attention on Beasley and say, okay, you want to know what? We dare you to beat us with Davis.
Singletary and Gabe Davis.
Yeah, Singletary and Davis and Knox. Can you do it? Right. And then it would be great to see, can he step up in that role and be able to perform to that level. So again, that's our spotlight player of the game here for our friends over at Uncle Jumbo's. Make sure you're checking them out. We'll have lots more exciting stuff to come when we get ready to do the tasting room and maybe even do a show from there.
I'll be down there for a show. We've talked about it. Yeah.
I'm excited to be able to check that out and had a good time with the guys here today. So we'll go through and now, we've come to the end here. We'll put ourselves on the spot. Aaron, I'll let you go first here this week in case you're going to try to copy me again.
I stole everything from Anthony in the.
Yeah, that was so great. What do you have for your game prediction for this week?
Yeah, so I look at this matchup. We didn't even get into the DVOA and stuff. Everything on paper says the Bills are the better team in this matchup. Everything that I have seen and watching Carolina shows that there's some opportunities for Carolina. Like I was talking with Antwan, like if the Bills really want to do this, we're going to come out and pass 25 times and we're going to be predictable and tell you what we're going to do. I don't think that's the answer in a game like this. I think that the fans that want that, I'm not sure that that's the answer. I think they get their hands on enough balls and they get enough pass rush where that can go pretty sideways pretty quick. And you don't want to get. Go ahead.
But yeah, before we have you answer that here, a good question from Dave Arena. We appreciate your contribution very much. He asked, do you think the addition of Emmanuel Sanders caused the chemistry to be off with Gabe, not seeing as much action compared to last year? Or does that have nothing to do with the offense feeling different? I'll let you go first.
I think Gabe Davis this year got hurt early on, and I think that hurt his ability to get on the field. And Emmanuel Sanders had a good start to the year and immediately had chemistry with Josh Allen. So I think it was more that Gabe missed some time. He's still young. He's a developing player. There's no rush to get him involved. Emmanuel Sanders is not a young developing player. He was a guy brought here to win a Super Bowl, to fill that role that John Brown left. And so I think it was more of a timing issue, if anything, and Gabe getting back up to speed. The offense sort of trying to define their identity this year too, I think also kept him off the field for a while, trying to figure out what they were going to be, bringing tight ends in after that first week where they went out, spread everybody out. So I think it was more just a timing issue, and now the timing's working out. Gabe has continued to ascend here throughout the year as he's getting more and more reps, and now it's worked out really well that, for him anyway, that Sanders is out and now he's going to get the bulk of those reps. So I don't know that it caused any chemistry issues for Gabe. I think it was just a timing of an injury and a player coming in to take those reps.
Yeah, and I think we remember the flashes from last year more than the overall. John Brown was still the wide receiver 2 last year. And when he was healthy, he played just like Emmanuel Sanders here, and Gabe Davis was, again, a relatively distant 4th. And when John Brown got hurt, Gabe Davis did come in and played well and had funny, just like this, the tweet that I just talked about, had a really high efficiency game. And honestly, that was part of, you have to go back to last year to get the 100 targets to make the numbers.
But that disappeared after that Indy game.
But then kind of came back down. And I don't know if he had been healthy and Sanders hadn't been here. What I'm talking about now, I'm curious what we're going to see. I don't think there was this huge next tier that Gabe Davis was going to leap into. I think he is a efficient, good blocking, physical receiver that can do a pretty good job. I don't know that right now, maybe in year 3 or year 4, we see another actual leap. The precision in his route running, his ability to create separation, the nuance in reading defenders in the zone, he doesn't have what Emmanuel Sanders and Cole Beasley have. When you watch it, he gets lost sometimes. He gets kind of loosey-goosey in his routes. Like it's not as precise of where it needs to be to create separation. Now, spending every day in practice with Stephon Diggs, Cole Beasley, and Emmanuel Sanders hopefully is helping him accelerate that. And maybe we're going to see that now. Maybe in this extended run, we're going to see more of that. I haven't seen that yet. So I think he's good. I'm excited to see more, but I need to see it first before I fully buy in.
I think there's a feeling in the fan base that Emmanuel Sanders has somehow dropped off. And I don't think that that's true. And I know I'm not going to, I hate to sort of cast any criticism on Josh because it gets me killed on Twitter to say anything about Josh. But in a lot of what I've seen, there's been a number of times where you're seeing Emmanuel Sanders open, waving his hands that he's open, and Josh is going elsewhere.
Yeah, the one I got harassed to no end for listing today, Anthony Prohaska. If anybody didn't see it, Anthony did a series of about 6 tweets. One of them was the first play of the game. Everybody remembers the swing pass to Devin Singletary. Josh, his first read was Emmanuel Sanders. He came off at a hair early. The Buccaneers blew the coverage. It was a completely blown coverage. Emmanuel Sanders was all by himself down the sideline. It would have been a 75-yard touchdown. Mm-hmm. And Josh came off at a hair early and missed him. Sanders saw it, was waving his hand as he was sprinting up the sideline by himself, and Josh missed it. And again, people came at me about, maybe Josh was worried about the pocket collapsing. The pocket was fine. And again, that he was historically great in the second half, but that was the kind of thing we were talking about. He had a couple misses in the first half. Several of the ones Eric pointed about in other games, several of the misses we've highlighted for Josh Allen, a lot of them are Emmanuel Sanders. Yeah,
it has been. I've seen, I watch all of the games. I don't always post it, but I see it. And Sanders has done a pretty good job of getting open a number of times, and the ball doesn't end up coming his way for whatever reason it is, whether Josh is missing him or somebody else is open too. So I think we're quick to see the lack of production in the box score and just think, Emmanuel Sanders, his age has hit him and he's fallen off. He still gets open. There's still opportunities for plays to be made by Emmanuel Sanders. So I'm not, while I'm excited to see what Gabe Davis can bring to this offense, I'm not excited that Emmanuel Sanders is hurt and not a part of this offense.
If we're going to make a run in the playoffs, I want him back. Now, if that's now a split 50-50 role of him and Gabe Davis, great. Mm-hmm. I want him back in an option.
Yeah, totally. So back to this game. I think the Bills are better in almost every way when I look at it. But if they're going to could just go back crazy and pass all the time. I think that plays a little bit into their hands. I think Carolina can generate turnovers.
Their two best players are pass rushers.
They have good pass rushers. Stephon Gilmore, as much as people like to roast him about getting burnt a couple times when they make highlights, he's a good corner. Chin is a good football player. Like, these guys get their hands on balls. If you watch the games, there's a lot of interceptions that just don't turn into interceptions because the ball's bouncing up in the air. They're deflecting balls all over the place. So this is a defense that flies around. They're fast. They can create turnovers if you're sleeping on them. But I think the Bills are a more desperate team. And I think that matters in the NFL. I hate going up against teams that are desperate. And right now, the Bills are much more desperate. They need this win. They need to stack some wins here. And I think that matters in this matchup too. And so that aspect with that, it's a better team at home. And I know people don't think the cold weather matters. I think it will matter in this game a little bit. These players play here. They are more used to being in these conditions. They've played in it more. I think that's going to come through and matter a little bit. Too many injuries for Carolina. Quarterback play matters too much. They don't know what they're doing over there. I think the Bills should easily win this one. I agree with you. I think they are going to boat race a little bit here in this one. I have it 27-13. I think that they just get out to an early lead, continue to pile on it. I think maybe Carolina scores late to make it feel a little bit better, but I think they're going to have trouble moving the ball against this defense. I don't think they're going to be able to score multiple touchdowns in this game. They'll probably get maybe a short field at some point and end up with a field goal, but I think the Bills should be able to cruise comfortably here and take that momentum hopefully into the New England game.
Love it. I'm really close. I had one more field goal each. I had a 30-16.
Okay.
I think the same thing. One touchdown for Carolina, a handful of field goals, maybe one from a turnover and some favorable field position. They have some decent special teams as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that I'll go even a step further, that it's what I expect to see because it's what they need to do.
Yeah.
Like, if any of these hopes and silver linings we're grasping and things we're trying to tell ourselves, if any of it's true, then they boat race a team like Carolina. Like, it doesn't have to. I'm not talking it has to be 45-0, but they comfortably control the game. They take that lead, and it's never in the position where, oh man, I hope we get this because we really need it, that they're comfortably a score 10 points ahead the majority of the time and then pull away a little bit as the game goes. And again, I'd love it to be, 27-10 going into the fourth quarter and they say, hey, Josh, go ahead and sit down. We'll let Mitch take a couple series here just to save it. So I do think Carolina's defense is good enough that I don't think we're going to put up a 40 burger on them. They're a good, legit defense.
Yeah.
It
reminds me a lot of the old Bills, man.
Yeah, we need to be careful with Hassan Reddick and Brian Burns. Those are legit pass rushers. We don't want to expose Josh Allen here. I want them to be smart. That might involve some of those dink and dunk, death by 1,000 paper cut drives where you need to get the ball out quickly. Don't open that up. You don't need to take a bunch of 7-step drops trying to take shot plays. Don't give their pass rushers that chance. They can't stop us in those controlled, disciplined drives. Work your way down the field, get into the red zone, and then score touchdowns when you get in the red zone. That's what's going to win this game. And I think they're going to do it. So again, Aaron's got it 27-13. I've got it 30-16. We both have them with 14-point wins here coming this weekend. And I think that's what we need to see. And Mason with a great win here. Big Daryl Johnson revenge
John
game.
Miller revenge game.
Bam. Yeah, John Miller revenge game. a lot of different options. There's a lot of connections for Addison and Butler and F.A. Obata. And
it will
Starr
not be a Butler revenge game.
Yeah. He can keep himself firmly planted in a sweatsuit on the bench. Will be just fine. But Aaron, any final thoughts for the people?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie. There's a little bit of me that is sort of not nervous, anxious to see how Josh is after that injury. Yes. We haven't seen him since we saw him in the walking boot after the game. We've seen pictures of him out in town, heard that he's out in town without the boot. Yeah. That's fantastic.
Yeah, no limp. He took in Hamilton at Shea the other night. So
enjoyed himself. I do know though that feet injuries and things like that can be something that bugs you, and they're going to need his legs down the stretch a little bit. You
don't want to make turf toe worse. Mild turf toe is very manageable, and a lot of guys play through it. More severe turf toe is a problem. That is an issue. You do not want that. We do not want him to aggravate this further.
And it can get aggravated further. And I think they'll do a good job putting in the support for him and issue and taping him up and making sure that's all supported. But it's something I'm keeping an eye on. It is his left foot, so that's his front planting foot as well and throwing the ball. If you've had any type of foot pain, you know that, everything goes right through the balls of those feet. And I think they need to come up with a new name for turf toe, because I think people think of it as like, it's like a mild,
minor.
Yeah, it's toe stubbed or something like that. But it can be very painful. Even
sounds
mild
like a hangnail.
cases. Yeah. And so I'm interested to see how he comes out right out of the gate. This is, we haven't seen Josh Allen have any injuries in a long time. So how is he going to play through it? I do think he will play. I think that he's going to be mostly full go out there, but I'm interested to see if it impacts him at all. If they continue to run with him, which I think they're going to have to do a little bit. Yeah. But how are they going to balance that of, hey, we want to be cautious with him, but we know that we need his legs.
Yeah, and for anybody who doesn't, everybody knows our guy Kyle Trimble over at Banged Up Bills talk through. They actually have a fair amount of different mechanical devices that can help with it to control it. And I'm drawing a blank. They're one of the playoff quarterbacks last year had turf toe, and they talked to Mahomes. Mahomes had turf toe when he went through there, and they talked about
his was severe.
Yeah, his got in it. It was 2 different injuries, and it got worse the second time.
Right,
and then they had to put the weird thing in his shoe, to be able to.
It impacted him in that Bills game. He was not extending plays.
And then obviously
we just couldn't rush
we just couldn't get there in time to make it matter. And then obviously the straw that broke the camel's back in the Super Bowl. But we don't want to get to that point with Josh. We want to be able to let it heal. So smart game plan, and hopefully
3 quarters of play.
Lead, 3 quarters of play. Let him sit down for the 4th quarter would be just lovely. So again, same thing. I have that same anxiety. I can't tell how biased I am, subconsciously, and how much I want that to be what happens, and how much I'm convincing myself that's what they need to do. But I will say, I don't think Vegas is far off. I don't think all the people betting on the Bills and the sharp money coming in. I listened to the Ben Solak and Warren Sharp pod again today, and hearing smart people talk about that. Yeah, this is a game the Bills should control and comfortably win. So I want to see that, but it's something where if our hopes for the rest of the year are real, we're going to have a good time, and tell the people how you're going to have a good time on Sunday.
I'll be there at the game. A friend of ours that I used to have season tickets with when I was way up in the 300s, his wife doesn't want to go to Bills games anymore. It's too cold this time of year, and so he offered me a ticket. So I'll be heading down and hanging out at the game. And then I will also be heading down Friday. Our good friends at the Shout podcast. I'm going to head down and see them. I think they're at Sonny's in Lackawanna.
Yes.
And so I'm going to go.
Sunny
Reds down in Lackawanna. Yeah, I got to look it up.
Something like that.
And find out where I'm going.
They're doing a live Shout podcast on Friday night. Joe Marino coming into town. Special guest Aaron Quinn. That's going to be really, really cool.
Hey, maybe they'll let me on the mic. Maybe I'll just sit there and eat some wings and watch them. But anyways, I'm going to go.
Just be a constant heckler throughout the show.
That's right. Bringing up DVOA. Well, actually, Toxic Differential says...
based on DVOA, that's not so looking forward to it. Anthony and I will be here for you in the post-game show, and maybe we'll get a guest appearance from Mr. Quinn as well. We'll see how things go in the game.
How traffic is.
Yeah, to see how long it takes you to get out of the game. But we're looking forward to it. I think this is going to be fun, and we get 4 straight 1 p.m. Sunday games. We did get the announcement that the game 10 days from now is going to stay at 1 p.m. with the Patriots. Is certainly wonderful for us.
Chef's kiss.
Ready for that very much so. But looking forward to it. I'm still excited about this Bills team. I know that there are some scary, it's a low floor of how things could go wrong. There's still a nice, exciting high ceiling here of what this team can accomplish, but they need to harness it. They need to take that second half from last week and make it more consistent. And they have a chance to show us that that's possible starting Sunday at 1 p.m. against Carolina Panthers. And Cover One's going to be there for you. Make sure you check out our sponsors over at Uncle Jumbo's, Underdog Fantasy. Use promo code Cover1 to get yourself $10 free. But on behalf of Aaron Quinn, I am Greg Thompson. You've been listening to Cover One Buffalo. And